Hi folks, how you doing? This is Mitch from Hard Intentions YouTube channel. We also have our hardintentions.com, which is our internet site where we sell T-shirts and all that good stuff and artwork. So I left off, I'd gone back to San Quentin, and I guess I had vision of what San Quentin was supposed to be like as a level 2. When I went back there, I was kind of disappointed. You had a bunch of older dudes, been down as long as I have, or longer in some cases. Guys that had B numbers and early C numbers, some D numbers, that kind of just became slaves to the state because they figured, if I just keep towing the line and doing this and that, maybe they'll let me out. And eventually they let us out, but at the time nobody was getting out. So one thing that kind of disappointed me, man, was everybody was wrapped up in their own little thing. There wasn't a lot of unity. The unity was gone. Guys that maybe they were just going along with things in the early days because they had to, but like I talked about, one dude that was hobbying, everybody was kind of jealous of what he was doing or upset about him being in the hobby, and they tried to get him kicked out of the hobby, and I told him, hey, instead of ratting on that dude, why don't you just go beat his ass, I kind of liked the guy because he was hobbying like crazy, even though he was a dope fiend, but the hobby was a big thing to me, and nobody was really helping anybody get into the hobby. It was real territorial, and my experience with hobby in the past was guys would help you get in, guys would help you get started. When I was in Tracy, man, we had hobby. We would package up, a couple of my friends were lead men in the wood factory, and they would take me out back and say, what kind of wood you want? And they'd have the forklift driver pick it up, take it to the shop, cut it into pieces I wanted, box it up, and have it shot over the hobby so I had wood to work with. I mean, they had that route set up for their own, things that they wanted, but they cut me in once in a while so I could get glue and wood, little boost, because technically you're supposed to buy all that stuff through catalogs and wood companies, and we did, but it's nice to have a little boost once in a while, and so guys would do that for each other. And so to go back to San Quentin and see everybody on this greedy little trip, like, fucking X guy, it wasn't cool. I didn't like it. And then, guys that had hustle, other guys would get jealous of them, start talking smack about them, and that guy's no good, or that guy's this, or that guy's that. And it's kind of like, it's like bitch shit, kind of. But anyways, this is kind of my little wooden airplanes that I used to make in the hobby there. This one's been sitting on a shelf for a while. It's kind of dusty. But I made these here in my little outdoor wood shop, which kind of got shut down. I used to make these like crazy there. They're wooden toys. And, I would sell those pretty cheap in there. But I'd make, 5 or 6 at a time, put them in the store. Make jewelry boxes, put those out, make wooden Jeeps, fire trucks, stuff like that. It's money in the bank, man. So there was one dude, though, Dave, he kind of helped me get into the hobby, and he would laugh and, because he'd say, yeah, them guys ain't liking you getting in there and doing this and that. And he'd laugh about it, but, he was a dude that had hustle, and everyone called him a snake and a dirt bag and shit behind his back. And, I thought he was kind of cool. He never snaked on me, and he always did me good, actually. And but he lived with a dude who was at the time he was in a motorcycle club out of a Santa Rosa area, and later on got kicked out for various reasons. But before I had gone back to San Quentin, there was a little riot between the Northerners, Hispanics, and the whites inside the building. And actually, when I got there, they were just coming off lockdown for that. And so this guy, he didn't get involved in it. And everyone was talking shit about him. As a matter of fact, one dude got in his face, and call him a broad and a bitch and all kinds of shit, and he didn't do nothing. Actually, offered to pay the guy to keep his mouth shut. But so I asked him, hey, what's up with that? And he goes, oh, well, I was taking a shit when that was going on, and I couldn't. I'm like, really? I'm thinking, I just, I said, all right, because now I'm starting to realize, I'm in a level 2, and, how things are. So I just kind of, okay. But, when there's a riot going on, there was dudes climbing up and down the tiers and running around the other side of the building so they could get involved and help their buddies out, man. And you're saying that you're sitting in the cell taking a shit, and that's why you didn't get involved. I'm not buying it. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of a janky thing. Another thing I noticed too about San Quentin, the food had just gotten really bad, man. I mean, just super. I had some bad food prior to that, but the food there had gotten really terrible, and that was kind of I used to slide up in the kitchen and snatch food whenever I could do my job. But I remember one time on the 4th of July, right after I got there was this cat Lucky working in the kitchen, and he would get us, I say, hey, let me go volunteer tonight. So I volunteered on the 4th of July, and at the end he had to kind of have the cop, programmed, I guess, or whatever. The guy was good with him. As long as the work got done, the leftover food, we could roll out. So I had a laundry bag. I remember on 4th of July, man, they still had pretty good meal for 4th of July. They had hamburgers, they had hot links, and so I went in and got, I had big bags of hot links, probably 40, 50 hamburgers, and I got a big sack of ketchup, bunch of hamburger buns, lettuce, all that shit, and I took it to my cell, and they had an open unit there, so after count and dinner and all that stuff, they have open units, so that means all the doors in the building are open, and you can go in and out of the building, you can go from cell to cell, tier to tier, walk around, shower, all that shit, and so I went in and laid out bowls. You had big bowls. I had a bowl full of hamburgers, bowl full of hot links. I had all the hamburger buns, hot dog buns, big bowl of ketchup, packs of mayonnaise. And I just went around and told all the white dudes and a couple Mexican cats I knew. I said, hey, man, you want a hot links? Or, because guys were stealing food out of the kitchen and selling it on the tier. And I go, you guys want hamburgers or hot links? Oh, yeah, well, we ain't got no money or what. I said, just go to my cell and help yourself. And, my cell was open. I wasn't worried about no one stealing none of my shit, but I had it all laid out on my bed, and they're like, fuck, dude, where'd you get all that shit, but that was pretty cool, but guys were surprised that I would just bring all that stuff out and not sell it and just give it away. That's a mentality that kind of developed. Everybody had their hustle going, and nobody wanted to cut nobody into nothing, and kind of greedy, me mentality, I know everybody has to survive in there, man, but the best way to survive is to survive with each other, is to help each other come up. That's how you survive on a good level. That's how you excel, To me, the individual that hits a lick, you can do all right, but if you hit a lick and you got other people doing it, everybody's got a little piece of something, man, and everybody's living good, the economy's good. That's how it is in prison, too. That's how it is out here. If everybody out here is working, everybody's making money, it flows, It's the same thing in prison. So for guys to be all greedy and just, I don't know. Them dudes had a route to get wood out of the PIA, too, like all the scrap pieces, the pretty good sized pieces of wood. They can't use them to make furniture. Guys that were tied up in that PIA for 10 or 15 years, they were getting boxes of wood out. And I'm like, hey, man, how do I come up on some of them boxes of wood? What, I got to buy it? What's going on, And no response. So finally I figured out it was this dude who had been down for a while. I knew him in another prison. He was the guy that took the crime scene photographs at CMF when somebody got murdered and shit. And he had been in San Quentin for quite a while. he was a military guy, you know, and so I did a painting of a military painting for him that they donated supposedly to the veterans, and he brought me a couple boxes of wood, and see, that's how it's supposed to work. But it took me a minute to figure that out, you know. But most of them dudes were like tight with the shit, man. So, anyways, I don't know. That was disappointing about San Quentin, you know. Guys see you doing stuff and they tell on you, and guys, you know, I don't know. It was rough. And so what ended up happening was I spent a lot of my time I would spend, you know, pretty much by myself and think, man, what the fuck, you know. I didn't really like what prison had become, you know. You had a bunch of whiny fuckers, bunch of tight ass, you know, dudes hermited up in their cells, you know. Tobacco now was illegal, so there was a tobacco hustle. And guys were selling tobacco for gold and jewelry and stuff like that from the reception center guys. It's whatever. I hate to see guys give up their wedding rings and shit for cigarettes. That was kind of... And, you know, you had the, you know, pill heads. Guys were becoming pill heads because the state was passing out pills. And it was just a fucking weird deal, man. Because, you know, I'm out, the same way I'm out here, that's the way I was in there. I'm kind of outgoing. I like to have fun. I like to make money. I like to party. And even though I had given up getting loaded, I still like to have a good time, you know. And if that meant, you know, having a food to spread with and all that shit. So, yeah, it was weird, you know. And then I got in a little trouble. I got a couple write-ups. And so now the only guy that would help me out was old Marvin Munch. You know, he tried to keep me there. He got me out of the hole. I went to the hole for a bit. And so Marvin Munch, he was our MAC, which is a Men's Advisory Council. He was like a jailhouse lawyer. He knew all the rules, governing, you know, what's going on in the pen and all that kind of stuff, and how they're supposed to treat us and how they're not. I think I spoke on it before, like, so Marvin's an MAC chairman, so he represents the guys in the North Block, and so, like, one time this sergeant was searching cells, and Marvin went and got in his face and, ooh, you know, who told you to do a building search? And the guy's like, I'm not doing a building search. And Marvin told me, anytime you search more than certain amount of cells, it's considered a building search. And the guy basically told him, you know, piss off. And Marvin went and got the captain, came back with the captain. The captain told the guy to quit searching cells. So, I mean, Marvin was on the shit. So Marvin got me out of the hole and tried to keep me there, but my points had gone up. So, but my points were going to go back down in a few months, and when I had my annual, but they shipped me out anyway. Marvin was trying to keep me there, and actually a lieutenant was trying to keep me there, but there was some female captain that didn't want me there, so they shipped me out. They ended up sending me back to CMF, you know, because my points were level 3, and CMF's right down the road, so you know, off I went to CMF, and I was kind of pissed off because I had acquired quite a bit more hobby stuff, and so I boxed it all up, and they're all, yeah, they got hobby in CMF, so you're good to go. I had like 11, yeah, so I had to box up all my hobby shit, and yeah, it was a bitch getting it sent over there. And now, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking I left CMF in '88 when I finished up my programs. So I'm thinking, you know, it was a wide open pen. Everything was great. Food was great. They had a big hobby shop, all that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, I'll go back there. You know, my points will go down, and I'll go back to San Quentin. No big deal. So I box up all my stuff and get transferred over there. So I get to it's like Fish Row kind of thing, you know. They have a reception tier, you know, and H2 is now reception. And yeah, I was in for a big surprise when I got there, because now they run a weird ass program. What used to be the reception center is now GP. The whole place was all, no, there's no reception there anymore. And they had a bunch of guys there. You know, they send a lot of HIV guys there. It's a hospital now. pretty much, but with a little bit of mainline type guys up on the third tier. Second tier was separate. I mean, they had yard every other day. You go out like one day in the morning, one day in the afternoon, third day you don't go out. Stuff like that. And I'm thinking, man, this place sucks. Because back in the day, everyone went out the yard all day. I mean, it was wide open. Plus, they cut the yard. I took a third of the yard and put two big giant cement buildings on the yard with like 200-man dorms. And so those guys got to go to the yard separate from other guys. It was just a crazy setup, man. And they still had funny money, which is yard ducats. Each one's worth $1. They had a mini canteen, and the ducats were being traded. You could buy and sell ducats for cash or whatnot. Or if you had a bunch of ducats, you could sell them, whatever. But I mean, that's to buy food. But you could no longer bring food in off the yard from the mini canteen like you could in the 80s when I was there. It was a weird setup, man. So they don't have any PIA there. They have no vocations really there. It was they just destroyed the place, man. The psych programs were bumped up. In between each wing, they had little yards for nuts. You go out there, the psych patient dudes. It was just, and they had gates in the hallways with cameras. And they did have big fans in the hallways because it gets hot there, and guys had died previous in the late 80s from heat, because guys take meds and then it gets hot, and they died, So, it just became a total control kind of place. And so one of the guys in San Quentin went over, took all my shit over to R&R and had it put on a bus and sent over there. And this guy's like, hey, man, this cop and R's like, hey, you got all this hobby shit here. What's up? What do you want to do with it? And I'm like, well, I want to do my artwork. And he's like, well, they had just done away with a hobby there. And there was a cop there, TJ. He was, he used to ride motorcycles, all that kind of stuff. He had just retired. And I knew him there from the 80s. He always treated us pretty good. He was like acting hobby manager for a while. So when he retired, they just did away with hobby. So now I got 11 boxes full of hobby shit. Wood, art, all kinds of stuff. And finally this guy steps up. He was a CO when I was there in the 80s. And he goes, you know what, I'll put it in the basement until you transfer back to San Quentin. And that way, I won't lose it. Because I told him, I can't buy this shit again. It's too much, And so now I got no hobby. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do? I mean, that's my thing, hobby, right? And they had a program up there, Arts and Corrections. And it's up in the same area where they have occupational therapy. That's like a hobby shop for the nuts. So they let them go up and mess around with hobby, but they had Arts and Corrections, and they had this black guy was the free staff running it. And I knew this guy David. He was Native American dude, but he was kind of a strange cat. And he worked up in there, and he got me a job in there. And so I'm working up there. I'm thinking, hey, it's I'm like this. Anytime there's state shit going on, I'm going to run it to the fullest. And so I did a big painting of some elephants. It was about 6 feet by 4 feet. And they put it up in a different section of the prison that they had built on the yard. It used to be the reception center yard. They built like a facility for extreme nut cases, and they put that out there, and so I fill up a bunch of bottles full of paint, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start doing some artwork in myself. And, because they still had some guys with hobby stuff, even though there was no hobby. It was like they still had some of their shit. So I thought, no big deal. I'll just take some of this shit home. So I got a bunch of little 2-ounce bottles, fill them up with paint. I think I had like 20 different colors. I got a few paint brushes. I got them in a bag, and I'm walking them home. And oh, by the way, one of these psych ladies that that run the psych program had gone through the shop and saw that elephant paint and was blown away by it. And she's like, so, she's talking to me about art and all this stuff, and she's like, so what are you doing? And my thing was, I tell Mom, I'm just waiting to die, and she's like, what? And this lady works with nuts, so them dudes are always trying to take themselves out and all that shit. And my thing was, we're not getting out of prison, we're just sitting around waiting to die, right? And so I told her, yeah, my artwork, yeah, it's just a good way to pass the time while I sit around and wait to die, And she was like, wow. So she took an interest in me, thought maybe I had issues, but really I was just facing reality at the time was, we're not getting out. So my artwork was the best way to fill my time while I wait to die, And so anyway, I got this bag full of paint and brushes and stuff. And we split, early, go home for lunch, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going down the hallway, and this fucking cop goes, hey, come here, right by the housing unit, I go, what's up? He goes, what do you got in the bag, and I show him, he just freaked out, dude. He made a big issue out of it. I mean, he called the goon squad, they took photographs of it, and they called this dude in Arts and Corrections, like, asked him if I had permission to take this stuff out, and he clammed up, and he didn't say yes or no. And I said, well, I'm doing work in the house. I work in Arts and Corrections. I do artwork up there for the program, and they weren't having it, dude. They went and tore my house up. Like I said, they took photographs of all the paint and the brushes, and so here I go, another fucking write up. I'm like, damn, man, and basically wrote me up for having contraband or some shit like that, but. The cop went and just turned my cell upside down, man. I was so fucking mad. And the goon squad, dude, I was so fucking hot, dude. I was drove. So, I lost my job in Arts and Corrections over that. The dude he was like, he was scared of the goon squad, basically. So he didn't want me back up there. And I was like, all right, fuck it, So now it turned into, like, it went from like being like a 6 or 7 month trip, go back to committee, points go down and go back to San Quentin. Now I got another write up. So I'm like, shit, So I hung around for about, I don't know, a month or two with no job, pissed off, But what I used to do was I got some pencils and, this is before they had like digital x-ray shit, so the x-ray film comes on white boards. They're kind of thick, and so what I would do is I'd go down to x-ray. I knew the inmate that worked in there. After they do the x-rays, they're all different size boards, and one of them was like 18 by 24, pretty good size, 16 by 20. I asked them to give me some of them boards, and they did, and I would draw on them, do drawings on them and stuff. I had to do some kind of art. That was my thing. And I said, fuck it, man. The food, too, had just gotten just shitty as hell, man. And, I mean, really bad. And there was a lot of stealing of the meat, guys in the kitchen. There's no discipline. There's no... See, and that's the thing where it comes in, like, segregation in California and, structure, all that kind of shit is in this pen there really was none. So guys would just steal the fucking meat, they'd cook casserole dishes with chicken or beef tips in it, and they'd just steal them pans of shit and dump it out. The scullery has these big racks. They put silverware in there, run them through the machine, so they'd get one of those and put it over a trash can, dump the pan of food on there and spray it with a hose. So all the shit washes out of it, and they just pick the meat out of it, and then take bags of that meat home and sell it so they could buy cigarettes, basically, and fuck everyone out of their food. Yeah, so the food situation was just bad. Now, here's the deal. Back in the day, if you got caught doing that shit, you get beat down or stabbed, So anyway, I got a job in the kitchen. I worked on the serving line for a minute, and then they needed someone to fill in the scullery, so I'm like, I'll do it. you know. And then the next day they go, hey, you want to be the lead man in the scullery? I go, sure. So I worked in the scullery there for took me about another year to get out of there and get back to San Quentin. But, you know, the sergeant, man, he was pretty cool. Sergeant Williams, you know, he ran the kitchen, and he's like, at the end of every night, whatever, like when they had, I remember one time they had hot links, you know, and he got a pan, you know, the cooks would grab that shit and take it to the back and put it in a cart, and Sergeant Williams went through the little grill gate there, and he got a pan of hot links, and he used to give me food and then make sure that my crew got fed, you know, that they could, he would let us take the shit out of the kitchen, take it home, but it was the leftover food at the end of the night, you know. And so the guy took them pans and put them in a cart right on the other side of the grill gate, and this is the head cook, you know, and he goes through the gate, grabs one of them pans of hot links, and the cook got in front of him. He goes, where you going with that? And he told him, get the fuck out of my way. And he just handed it right over to me. He goes, here you go. But that was for the crew, you know. Because, you know, the pay number, I was a lead man. I think I got like $20 a month, you know. But, yeah, so, you know, you don't get paid a lot. And he appreciated us doing our fucking job, making sure we always had clean shit. You know, I took care, made sure everything was clean. And so he appreciated it. And that's how, you know, staff take care of their workers, you know. Anyway, I worked in there. I just got a regimented program, man. I go to the yard, and we had morning yard. I go out, and there was a guy there. He was an older man that I knew in Tracy. They brought him out of Tehachapi level 2. They made it an S&Y yard, so they brought them guys down. Some of them put them in them dorms they built on the yard. So I got to see him when I was there, and yeah, he's an old biker, you know. And so I'd go to morning yard, we had morning yard, go in and go to work. Come home, shower, lock up, do my art, listen to music. I'm a big music fan, you know, so, yeah. That was my program. I was regimented. I just got in a regimented thing saying, you know what, fuck these dudes, man. You know, I didn't hang out in the day room. It was just they just turned that prison into a real shitty place, man. And I did see a few guys that were lifers I knew in the old days, and some of them are out now. But overall, man, that place just sucked, dude. It was just bad. Tobacco was, you know, for sale, and guys would be balling with tobacco and then get busted. You know, one of my friends, Mickey, popped in there, and you know, he was balling. You know, you know, he had phones. He was always getting caught with phones. And I said, hey, brother, you got to quit fucking with them phones, you know. And he's like, yeah, I know. But they had food sales there, which was okay. And so I'd go over to, Mickey would come over to the day room, or I'd go to his day room. We had food sale, and we eat, you know. That was kind of cool. But, you know, Mick got busted when he was 16, and he's supposed to get out this month in 2020, June. Be 45 years he's done. So yeah, so I got to see him and a couple other guys I knew from the old days. But man, that was a depressing fucking prison, man. They just ruined it, because I knew how it was prior in the 80s, and to see how they just destroyed it, man, it was just bad, man. It was ugly. You know, like I couldn't get a job in the back of the kitchen. I could only work in the front. I couldn't get a job in plant operations because I was a lifer. And it was just way out, man. It really was. And so I got ready to go to board there, but I also had my annual classification coming up, and my points were going to, I actually had a semi-annual. And so that means your points would go down, you know, you can have a semi-annual. I asked for that. She goes, well, you're going to board. I said, man, fuck the board. I'm not going to board. And once again, it's like, well, you got to go to board. I said, no, I don't. And she said, well, let me ask my supervisor, you know. So I waived my board hearing. I said, you know, they're not letting me out anyway, so fuck it. So I waived my board hearing for a year, and I had a semi-annual, and I'm back up to go back to San Quentin, which was cool. I was glad to get the fuck up out of that prison, man. It was just, they had just ruined it. But that sergeant in the kitchen, I remember him telling me, man, I don't want you to leave. I said, there ain't nothing keeping me here, man. You know, it's a fucked up place. And And right before I left, they closed the Yard Shack canteen down because guys are stealing out of there. See, that's what I'm saying. There was just no respect for traditional shit anymore. And it was amplified there. And so I shot back to San Quentin. And then I get there.